As SpongeBob entered its double-digit seasons, it knew it couldn't keep telling the same jokes and stories over and over again. Season 10 sees the show refreshing itself, wondering what to do next, and stumbling into some right and wrong answers. Like Season 5 before it, 10's going through the motions, though they were thankfully still trying to keep it funny this time around. I don't think it's a particularly great season, or even that good. There's not much room for it to breathe in 11.5 hours, but I respect it as a turning point where SpongeBob realized, well, if I'm gonna be around forever, I might as well make the most of it. I'm Employee Million, and here are my favorite and least favorite episodes from SpongeBob Season 10. Number 5, Snooze You Lose. Who's the prankster that came up with this idea? SpongeBob and Patrick controlling Squidward from the inside in a very deranged way. Like, they control the muscles and brain while he's asleep, and SpongeBob has way too much fun fiddling around with the brain. I'm not gonna lie, this shot here gives the toenail scene from House Fancy some competition. The story itself doesn't go in a straight line, it just progresses slightly, then takes a random detour into weird for the sake of weird every 2 minutes. The setup's just not funny, the ending's oddly generic, and I really hate to think about the implications. Number 4, Out of the Picture. Letting a little looser with the show doesn't mean you should resort to using stuff we already hate, but now with a more in-your-face attitude. Why does Mr. Krabs care what this random art critic says about Squidward's art? And why is he so happy to get Squidward killed? He even gets out a mallet and chases him at one point, before they both destroy the Krusty Krab for the fun of it. I don't even want to think that this comes from the same world as something like One Course Meal. At least Krabs wasn't physically trying to kill Plankton there, and there wasn't this terrible character, or a callback to Rock Bottom that misses the whole point of its debut episode. This all sucks even harder because the rest of Squidward's adventures are fine, but the flaws weigh this episode down like an anvil. Number 3, Code Yellow. SpongeBob's playing doctor this time around, and despite how famous he gets at the hospital, he still barely saves many patients' lives. I don't find him shaking a fish's skeleton out of him to be funny, even if he's replacing it with a model skeleton. It's not great seeing Mrs. Puff back in the hospital, especially because SpongeBob ends up actually hurting her a lot this time. The grand finale is when he gives Squidward a nose job in a painfully long, worthless sequence of gags. There's also the fact that when he's off to work at the end, he just admits he's not a doctor and walks away, with no consequence. I'm just gonna leave this clip from Suds here.
You should be arrested for impersonating a doctor.
Number 2, Plankton Retires. The main problem I have here is that there's no real goal to make things stand out. We get no less than 5 failed Plankton schemes at the start, all with the same punchline. Then it's just New Leaf, an episode I already don't have that strong an opinion on. Plankton supposedly moves to a new town to retire, but then it turns out everyone's robots, while their real selves are back at home playing Capture the Flag again. Why then are we following the robots for so long? It feels like they wrote the twist in as late as possible, because they didn't know how to put everything back to normal after not even going that all out with changing everything. The story's sludge, the jokes aren't snappy, and they didn't remember what made New Leaf such a unique Plankton episode. Number 1, Patrick's Coupon. The double-digit seasons have sadly given birth to the just watch Patrick act stupid for 11 minutes genre of episode, which shows no signs of slowing down or improving, which is saying something since this one is really bad. I find it hard to relate to Patrick when he slaps an ice cream out of SpongeBob's hand because he's got a coupon for him, or throwing a tantrum at the store when he finds out it's expired. Then there's his battle with the Ice Cream King, who somehow owns this beautiful store, which is home to one of the most unfunny, unentertaining scenes in the whole series. The hair growing contest is a stain on Season 10, which is bound to happen due to how short it is. As I said, there's only 11.5 hours total, so at least there isn't much room for error. That doesn't excuse these bottom 5 episodes. If anything, it makes them more glaring. On the positive side of the season, you've got episodes that are on par with those from 9B. They're still worth a viewing if you're cautious and interested in how the show's doing today. Number 5, The Getaway. Boating episodes don't usually tend to be the best of the bunch, but this is a notable exception. This one's always on the move after it introduces you to its delightfully cheesy new characters, Sticky Fins and Dorsal Dan. Sticky Fins is stuck with SpongeBob, at first finding him usefully naive, but slowly getting fed up with his reckless driving. Even criminals aren't comfortable in the same car as him, but yeah, the gap between them gets a bit forced at the end. The romance between Dan and Mrs. Puff also gets a bit strange. I like it when they're acting all mushy because it's strangely cute, but please, no more tenderfoot. I still found myself laughing on this rewatch, so that shows its jokes are effective. Number 4, Unreal Estate. I don't find it lame at all that they resorted to a house hunting episode. My parents are obsessed with finding new houses, so I can relate to the parody of seeing strange new ways to live. Besides, the pineapple house is part of SpongeBob's identity, and seeing him faced with the task of moving to a new one is emotional, but not sad or anything. I already had my fill of that. But why is he moving out? Because Squidward's tricked him into being allergic to his old house. This is one of his meaner episodes, since he rarely gets to torment SpongeBob the way SpongeBob unintentionally does to him. But I can forgive that if he gets enough bashes and bruises to cool things even. And this episode has me covered. I mean, he gets launched into outer space in the last house. How far against him can this world get? Number 3, life insurance. There's a lot going on here for such a straightforward Squidward story. The first item of business is how this episode portrays life insurance for most of its runtime. It's some sort of invincibility passport here, with nothing implying the one SpongeBob and Patrick got weren't magically making them immune to danger. The true fun starts when they hand their papers over to Squidward though, and he has as much fun as he can being an unstoppable demigod. This was the 400th episode of the series, with Squidward appearing in a majority of the prior ones with the same comedically unfair karma, so seeing him bid it farewell, if for just a few minutes, is super satisfying. This episode leans pretty heavily on the cartoon violence however, so if that's not why you watch SpongeBob, just take that as a word of caution. Number 2, feral friends. There's weirdness, and then there's utter absurdity, but fun absurdity. This is a pretty daring 16-minute episode, cramming in as many characters as possible, including Patchy after years on hiatus, and de-evolving them so we can learn more about what they actually are. They picked some entertaining facts to present, some even putting some classic scenes in a new context, and the adventure aspect is a treat. It's a shame that all Sandy's friends are de-evolved by a deadly supernatural occurrence on her birthday, but she has fun with the predicament, and that's all I could ask for from her character. Patchy's segments aren't hilarious, but it's fun seeing them back, as well as the French narrator actually knowing Sandy. It's just a really fun episode I always look forward to. Number 1, Mimic Madness. You already saw this coming, my audience of predominantly 30-year-old women, but there's just no contest. Narratively, Mimic Madness has a lot in common with Two Thumbs Down. SpongeBob likes doing something, it causes problems for him, sad song, friends save the day with sheer hope. That knocks a point or two off for unoriginality, but Mimic Madness more than makes up for it with a fantastic twist on this story type. SpongeBob imitates his friends extremely well, and it goes to show how far his voice actor Tom Kenny has come since he entered the business. Not to mention, the animation is amazing. The morphing SpongeBob's face does is some of the most impressive you can make on a TV budget. Not to mention, the song's wonderful. SpongeBob's made many sad songs over the years, and Who Am I fits in with the best of the best. If you haven't seen this episode, you definitely should. I can't guarantee it'll be your new all-time favorite episode, but it'll leave you wanting more of Season 10. The only downside to that is how short this season is, and largely uneventful. The episodes I didn't cover in these countdowns range from just good enough to mediocre, but making this a top 3 and leaving you with more to discover wouldn't be as fun. In the end, SpongeBob's 10th season is something you should check out, but just for the gems. I promise the 11th is a far better and more engaging investment of your time. Goodbye for now.